boisterous and upset and angry and disturbed, and he simply, so okay, if Dash states that he made me, he can go make another. And as we can see, they have went in two different, deliberately different directions. So what would you say to that first statement that you read, Dr. Sherman? What's coming up for you?
The fear of financial expansion is not always rooted in the gap between calling and competency. I think it's important because we can be called, but there's a gap in between understanding the pressure to understand yourself. So there's certain things that we're not, I had to learn that I very early on that I'm not an island. And if you don't, the gap could be the support. Jesus never did it alone. I think that was the thing that he showed.
Mm,
He showed us that the gap was in between of understanding, get different people from different areas of life so you can fill the gaps of different things and you can reach more people if you have that competency. You don't need everybody, but he had 12 and they all had this specific thing that they did well. And if you ever went to go watch The Chosen, it really did a really good job in understanding how Jesus selected the 12 and the gap and the reason why they were there for specific reasons. So when you're building your team, fill the gaps. Don't get people that look like you, that feel like, oh, they're the same like you. Get people that can fill the gaps in between so you can build the infrastructure further. Dr. Clarke's competencies is different from mine. My competencies is different from his. Our calling may be on the same page, but we're going to take different avenues. And the competency of gathering people to express that, to be able to move in the gaps, I think it's important for us to be able to reach more people. And I'm complete, Dr. Clarke.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. And that leads us into some of the areas where you can actually prepare yourself for growth. Yes, growth needs preparation. Don't ever think that, it's an overnight success. Even people that we may say are one-hit wonders, you'd be surprised how many nights they toiled by themselves that no one knew nothing. And even if they only had that one hit, sometimes that's better than your no hit. And sometimes we have to recognize that. Sometimes we talk about certain, entertainers, oh, they were a one-hit wonder, or they only did this greatness one time. Well, they had their genie in a bottle moment where they at least they caught our attention. They were able to express and whatever they chose to do after that moment. If they were wise, they figured out how to multiply that one talent and make that into a capable life. And so that deals with confidence as well. But part of it is, as we see in the first box, learn high income skills. Identify the 2 to 3 skills the market rewards most generously and invest deeply in mastering them. Your calling has a skill set. Find it and sharpen it relentlessly. Like I know Mr. Franklin is into, cleaning and things of that nature and doing it in a commercial level in a high quality way. When he started to really recognize, this particular product works better for this, and as he continued to develop in his skill set, that started to generate a certain level of income for him. That was definitely different than it was in the beginning part of as he was building his business. Same thing when I've spoken to Mr. Sampson, some of the things that he learned from his grandfather and his father and things of that nature in that respective business, as he started to evolve, he started to recognize certain areas of diversification had to kick in. Certain things that they may not necessarily have done, not blaming them, but just recognize, oh, they didn't do this, but now I have an opportunity. Now it's supposed to be do it like this or add this and, create this atmosphere and bring it up to another level. And it's like, wait a minute, these are high income skills. Customer service is a high income skill. Integrity is a high income skill. And at times, we have to watch when we're looking for the integrity in others, and then we don't recognize that we're supposed to have our own integrity as well. Because it's easy to point the finger outside yourself, oh, you're doing this and you're doing that, and then turn around and says, wait a minute, are you full of integrity? Sometimes we got stones we wish to throw, and we recognize that quickly we have to drop them out of our hands. So it benefits you for the long term to learn a high income skill.
Dr. Clark,
Go ahead.
you said something interesting there. I think going back to the gap with even with, if I had to say with um, Brother Edward, his business, he's in the commercial cleaning. He
Mhm.
doesn't clean homes. So that's the gap that he found his calling in. He can
Mhm.
clean, but his royalty group is about cleaning commercial homes. And there's so many times, and you say it a lot, about we try to be so much to everyone. What is your calling to your specific thing? And I go back to Jesus. Jesus' calling was to the people, to the poor, and really coming to say, I am the Savior, and understanding what that calling is. And when we get that, we don't have to be worrying about bringing being crabs in a barrel or bringing someone down, or even worry about someone else's integrity. If you understand what you're supposed to be doing and moving in that integrity, you can move with much more power. And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. And Miss Johnson, I saw your hand was up. Floor is yours.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the first point, learn high income skills, like even in this climate where AI is growing, we're pivoting, jobs are disappearing depending on where you are and what you want to do. Don't take that as a failure. Like, damn, why'd I go to school to pick random degree and now it's going to be obsolete? You didn't fail, you're not stuck. As I glimpsed at the basketball game, you have a pivot foot for a reason. It helps you maneuver, it helps you move. You're not failing, you're learning a skill that, whether you realize it or not, you can still build on in a totally opposite career. It's just you enhancing what you have, and it might actually be putting you on the correct path of where you need it to be. And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. And I like that you referenced basketball because if you keep that pivot foot there, that pivot foot is allowing you to still be able to be adaptable or movable. And as long as you don't pick up that pivot foot in basketball, you can be, trying to skirt around and trying to look for either the next proper pass so you can pick up that foot now, or if you're going to take the shot. And sometimes we desire not to take the shot, which keeps us small. And you'll always miss all the shots that you refuse to take. Which leads us to the next box. Increase financial intelligence. All of us, and this is part of the Comeback Collective Circle, we are here studying about wealth, how it is built, how it is managed, and how it is multiplied. Now, how it is added. Remember, wealth is not adding. It's always multiplication. It's always dealing in the exponential areas. It's always dealing in those areas. How could one person go out and find 1,000, but two people can get 10,000? And you'll say the math sounds funky, but the math isn't funky. The math is actually appropriate because we're dealing in exponents. So biblical stewardship includes financial literacy as a spiritual discipline. See, we have been given so many protocols and so many teachings and so much expression and so much possibility in how we're supposed to be stewards of what it is that we have. And if we just apply what we've learned, we'd be so much further ahead. But too many times we can have information overload, like how we're dealing with this identity conversation as a part of the dynasty path. Sometimes it can become overkill when it's like, okay, we're in week 17 of the identity. And it's like, wait a minute, whoa, 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 whoa. How many times you attempted to skin that cat? No, give the pertinent information so it is not just concentrated, but is powerfully expressed so people can apply it in their respective pathways. And on top of that, be in a space where they're being integral to themselves, not to us. That's why I respect all the members of the Comeback Collective Circle here, because it's about now, okay, we're going to continue to share information, but now how are you applying it? It's not about, oh yeah, we had a great time together on those Tuesday evenings, or I catch it later, on the respective YouTube channel, and I'm good. No, tell me, to, I know that you're good if you're able to apply it. And we're going to keep sharing the relevant information because it's always about application. So as you're getting this information, and Ms. Johnson alluded to about AI, yes, we're moving in different stages, and we're not at the end. In so many ways, we're still at the beginning. So what happens if you get on the ground floor of certain things and you just allow your skill set to continue to develop, or your skill set continues to evolve, and your skill set continues to grow, and then you're building the necessary team around you that's helping to accentuate what we're doing, and on top of that, we're all growing. That's what most people who, if we deal with people who say that there's otherness out there, those otherness people are afraid of. Not that you stay the same, but you allow yourself to grow in the respective intelligentsias that are happening around you. And finally, in this other small box, before we get to the purple box, take calculated risks. Yes, every single day we're taking a risk. Please don't think that you don't wake up in the morning, you're not taking a risk just because, regardless if you are, working from home and you don't have a commute. Every single day you wake up, you take a risk. And most times, depending upon the type of risk that you choose, will show that is your faith not necessarily just only being expressed, but are you accentuating? Are you multiplying? Just because you're faithful doesn't mean that you're multiplying. And we have examples from the Bible that shows that. You can be full of faith and still wondering why you in situations that you should not be in. Did you take the proper risk? Did you take the proper stretching? Or you just continue to eat the onions and leeks? Or did you allow yourself to say, wait a minute, it's okay if I reach for the grapes or the pomegranates or the dates? It's okay. Am I willing to reach for it? Because it's not going to just fall to me. So growth requires stepping into uncertainty with strategic preparation. See, that's the key. And this is where at times I can speak as a person of faith that if you present information that you're not willing to apply or you're not going to give the full information, then don't share it. Because sometimes people can get caught up in what they hear you say and go out there without the proper preparation and end up hurting themselves for the long term. And that ain't cool. Because then that hinders when we go back to the faith conversation. Oh, well, this person said do this and do that and this, that, and the third, or influenced me to do that. Wait a minute, were they prepared? Did we have the relevant conversations? Did we make sure we understood their skill set, their understanding, sometimes even their educational space or intelligence level? No, they just need to go out there and go do it. That's not good. Because now you have not fully prepared them. That's like taking a fifth grader and putting them in 11th grade trigonometry and then get mad at the fifth grader. How come you ain't getting the cosine and sine? They're a fifth grader. This 11th grade class, which they may eventually get to, is way above their educational space. But we just threw them out there. Swim. You'll figure it out. No, that starts to create a level of unimpacted fear that now we got to go back and clean up. So yes, every single day, please, you find those things that are calculated risks where you have done your preparation, you've done your research, you recognize the pros and cons. Anyone who's in the respective markets, regardless of it's crypto, stock market, real estate, they understand your money is at risk. But for some strange reason, those people who have positioned themselves well, even though their money's at risk, their financial potential is much higher than those who haven't taken a risk. So to complete this box, calculated risk is not recklessness. It is faith applied to opportunity with wisdom. Just be wise. You don't understand something? Ask the question. You don't understand something these days? Ask your assistant. These days, go find the book. Go find the information's out here. Be in these cyber communities like the Comeback Collective Circle. Ask questions here. We have no problem sharing the answers. Why? Because your question may not just necessarily help you, but it definitely will help someone else. And you don't know how far that information from that one question will help other people who can be impacted powerfully and exponentially because you asked your question. So always think about that. And the core truth about this respective slide, competence grows where competence is developed. You do not have to feel fearless before you act, because it's okay. Sometimes you have to do it scared. You have to do it nervous. Oh my God, I'm gonna wait till everything is perfect. It'll never be perfect. There's no perfect scenario. But you're willing to step out, put that first foot forward, and you start to recognize your other foot catches up. And then you take another step. And before you know it, you see that before where you couldn't walk a block, you can walk a mile. But as you act and grow, the fear loses its grip. Every skill you acquire is a brick in the wall that separates you from financial fear. Build consistently, build intentionally, and build boldly. Any thoughts before we move on to the next slide? Excellent. The mindset shift. Ownership versus employment mindset. And I'll read this slide. Financial gap in many communities is not just economic. It is architectural. The way you are taught to think about money determines the financial structure you build. It is time for a fundamental upgrade. And I talk about this all the time. Suppose we had financial literacy in elementary school. How much powerful would we be as a total society if we were getting economic and financial terms, regardless of, you're not going to tell a third grade about derivatives or options or credit swaps and stuff like that. I'm talking about just the basic binary sense of just some level of financial responsibility. Suppose that happened here in this particular country as a part of the educational standard. But there's a reason why it's not. And we've broken that down, and I have no problem sharing it again. Because if you share with people the ways that they can no longer be in a space where they can potentially be controlled, then you can't control them. And usually through income or position, and people say you can make X amount of dollars per year, and this is where your skill set can take you, and this is what you can earn, that's control. But when you start to break the fantasy, and that's why there's a difference between sometimes public school and preparatory schools or private schools, because then, the information is much more different. It was sad that at one point that in some public school systems, they were telling the children they couldn't use AI at all, not even as an assistant. But then there were other schools that saying, wait a minute, we're encouraging our students here to learn about it, to become capable, to move in those competencies. And then you start to see, wait a minute, these kids over here, they may be the same age, but these kids over here are running roughshod over these kids over here because of impact and exposure. So I'm gonna ask Ms. Johnson, can you read that first box under employee?
Employee, capped income, trades time for money within someone else's system. Security is real, but feeling is fixed.
Now think about that. I desire for not my dollars to be fixed. I don't think anyone who's truly a part of the comeback collective circle, I would never encourage that. Oh, just only go for $100,000 a year. Who told you that lie? Well, if I make six figures, I'm good. No, no, no. Who told you to just shoot for 100,000? That's what you get as an employee. Okay, so that's great. If you're making $100,000 from your employer, then what are you doing on those spare times, which you can hopefully double that 100,000? No, no, no. They pay me a good salary. They pay me enough. And that's what happens. Sometimes some of these companies pay you enough to kill your own dream. That's an employee. You know what I'm saying? I got my 401k. I'm good. I got my free coffee. And just the third, I got my little cubicle. But your dream was to be a chef, or your dream was to get into music. Your dream was to do this, do that, do whatever. So watch that whole employee trap. Because not only does it cap your income, it can cap your possibility. And that's not doable or workable as well. And Dr. Cheryl, can you please read under owner, the next box, under owner?
Scalable income builds systems that generate revenue beyond personal hours. Income potential expands with the business.
Now, here at the Comeback Collective Circle, we should all be at least looking to get into that realm. Now, we have no problem with people working for other people. That's smart. If that's where you're part of your skill set or part of the resources that come for you to take care of the type of life that you're living, that is great. But as you being an employee, that's good. If you're comfortable being an employee, that is your choice. We're not vilifying it or anything. But then you darn sure, oh, let me say it correctly, damn sure, better be taking some of your hours out of these 168 hours each week and make sure that you're creating something that you're an owner, even though you still may be working for someone else. Because that means now you're starting to become aware of the systems that are around you or the earning potential that can be around you. And even though you are still working for someone, eventually you can probably move from being an employee because if you build something as an owner that starts to match the income that you're receiving, you start to recognize that, wait a minute, suppose I put more attention into this thing over here. And then I put some more attention to this thing over here. Wait a minute, this thing is now outpacing what I was getting as an employee. You know what? Let me retire that job and continue to grow as this owner. And as I read the next box, investor, leverage income. Money works independently. Assets generate returns while you sleep, minister, and build legacy. And we're all ministering. That's the reason why I kept that word there. Because people say, oh, you're talking about, some sort of faith walk. No, we're all ministering. When we are servicing our customers, that's a ministry. When you're building resources or building systems, that's a ministry. When you are interacting and you're creating avenues where people and you're paying it forward, that's a ministry. We all ministering. Sometimes we get caught up in the word and think that it's just locked into a respective space. No, we're all ministering. And as an investor, we should be ministering. We should be investigating and figuring out those ways that we can continue to grow and leverage. Because, see, that helps with being an owner. And it also helps with being an employee. Because if you have a 401k, you're an investor as an employee. So it's like, oh, I'm not in the market. Yes, you are. You having a retirement plan? Yeah, you're in the market. Are you aware of what your money's doing? Are you creating those avenues to be in the space of possibility so you understand what's happening around you? Or you're just allowing yourself just people to tell you what to do and you just move accordingly? That's more sheepish behavior, which means that you are just in the space where you have no governance over your life. But even as an employee, you can move towards being an owner, and we all can be investors, and we should be investors. We need to invest in something because with inflation and everything else, if your money's not growing some type of way, that means your money's falling behind. And even though you may have $10,000, that $10,000 with inflation may not be worth the same as $10,000 20 years ago. What have you invested in? What is your money markedly working that you are not pushing? That you all of a sudden turn around and say, oh, I got these dividends, or I got, this thing grew exponentially in value. It's like, oh, you have an asset that's working, but you're not pushing. That you position your money well stocked to be leveraged. And finally, for this slide, the critical shift. Stop asking, what can I earn? And start asking, what can I build? One question accepts a ceiling. The other removes it entirely. See, when we all get to that real respective space where we recognize we only limit our dollars based upon our imagination, what we feel that we deserve, or what we confidently feel that we have the capacity to have. And when we start to break those glass ceilings and start to break those areas of understanding that there's no limit to what you can do, there is no box. And once you get rid of the box mentality, you start to understand that, as we proved with the Artemis 2, them going around the moon and back, We can't even say that, the earth, the sky's the limit. We can't even say that. We don't even say the sky's the limit or the upper atmosphere is the limit. That's a lie. Well, we can get to the moon, and eventually we'll probably end up at Mars, and eventually go to. Look, there is no box. Just recognize that. The only box that you live in is the one that you put yourself in. And when you get yourself outside of the box, you start to understand, like, wait a minute. Now I'm just talking about potential. What can we potentially make today? Because some people feel like making X amount of dollars per day is a crime. And certain people say, if I can make 10,000 a day or 20,000 a day or 30,000 a day, that's a blessing. And we're leveraging it and building the systems and we're seeing exponential growth. Oh, forget about it. We're not going to despise those numbers. We're able to maintain and grow and expand and experience. So there's always something to think about. That's why never minimize your small beginnings or even the minor exponential growth that you may be experiencing, just hoping and wishing that it was more. Respect what you have. Because you respect what you have, that's when you get more. If you're always just searching for the more and then deal with your capacity, that's the reason why you're not getting. So any thoughts before we go towards the final slide? Excellent. Final slide. The comeback declaration. Speak this aloud and mean every word. Your agreement with truth is the beginning of your breakthrough. Dr. Cheryl, can you please read the first box?
Yes. I reject the lie identity. Every false narrative about who I am, formed by environment, fear, or failure, loses its authority over me today.
Come on now. When you start speaking that powerfully and that can hit your soul. And it's supposed to hit your soul because it's powerful. I'm going to read the next one. I accept divine identity. I receive without negotiation the identity that God declared before I was formed in the womb. We're not going to go back to the scriptures in Jeremiah. But when you start to recognize that you are impacted and you're supposed to be moving in your divine identity, you continue to dispel, minimize, keep that identity that's attempting to rear its ugly head inside of you at bay. Because now you're moving in your declaration, you're moving in your power. And for some of you, especially as a woman, you should join Dr. Cheryl Clarke each and every Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time because she gives you some form and fashion like how we're making this declaration now, and you can be empowered. So make sure you go follow her on her YouTube channel, Dr. Cheryl Clarke, and on top of that, become a part of the Speak Your Power Now, weekly broadcast, and become a part of that circle as well. It's empowering. Okay, Miss Johnson, can you read the third one for us, please?
I align with my assignment. I step into the calling with confidence, competence, and commitment to serve at the highest level.
Excellent. See, once your assignment is really, really meted out, people start to say, "Oh, I only made X amount of dollars today," and this, that, and third. Says, "No, are you on your assignment? Yeah, then that was a great day. That was a blessed day." Never allow the numbers to dictate if your assignment is working. Because now you're moving more as a hireling, even spiritually, instead of recognizing, like, wait a minute, I'm on my assignment. And based upon how I position myself, how I promoted myself, how I allowed myself to be impactful in the respective spaces that I've allowed myself to do, and respecting my customers, respecting the people that I'm in concert with and business with, when all that is working and you're on assignment, you're not sitting there worrying about, all this other stuff. Because now you're not chasing the dollars are chasing you. And I'll read the final one. I expand financially. I'll say that again. I expand financially. I am a faithful steward. I build wealth, manage resources wisely, and fund the kingdom's advancement. And the reason why to me that's so important, because philanthropic or being charitable, you start to recognize there's a certain energy that can enhance your business. When you see some of these companies, especially, it's always usually in the fourth quarter towards the end of the year when, people start saying, oh, we're willing to donate X amount of dollars, and sometimes they ask their employees or get in concert, or sometimes during that time frame, people get bonuses and things of that nature, and they feel a little bit more, charitable and giving. We have to recognize something. The resources that touches our hands is not just for us. You're paying it forward, hopefully for your children's children, but at the same time, there's people that are a little bit less fortunate for you. And it's not that you have to go out there and proclaim and tell people, I gave my alms for this. No, it's not about that. That's being boastful. But recognizing, like, wait a minute, sometimes it's good to help people who may need help, because at one point you needed some help. There are times that you have to move in your surrender mode. And it feels a little, not daunting, but it feels a little humbling. And that is good, because that humility keeps you focused. That focus gets you to whatever you call your promised land. And that promised land is not just for you, but to say, okay, how can we be outwardly picturing helping others so other people can be impacted based upon what we were able to do here? So as you manifest through this declaration, you recognize this. You have the ability to get yourself in all spaces of alignment, possibility, capacity, and development. And you are worth it. That's why we continue to invite you to become a part of the Comeback Collective Circle. And, to keep declaring over your life all the great possibilities that can happen. And with that, oh, we did have one more side. Your comeback is already inside of you. Your comeback is not external, it is internal agreement. You don't need a new opportunity, you need a new identity. The room has always been yours. The assignment was always prepared. The wealth was always aligned with your calling. The only thing that was ever missing was your agreement. Dr. Shaw, what would you say to that quickly about the agreement? Because we talk about that, especially in the Power of 4A's book, which is available on Amazon.com right now. If you need that book, especially for couples, what would you say is so important about the agreement?
There's no relationship without agreement. There's no true relationship. I don't care what, if it's a business agreement, if it's a relationship between a mother and daughter, between between a mechanic. A relationship
Mm,
needs an agreement. And so many times we discard the agreement. We live in a life without agreement. That's why a lot of relationships go left, because we live in a lot of the gray areas in assumption and expectations of others, and things do change. So we have to look at how we can begin to make better agreements and be intentional that the agreements need to be in place with every situation. So that way you can be able to be an informed human on the earth with other people as we move along. And I'm complete.
thank you so much for that. Anyone else's thoughts before I read these last three boxes? Anything that's coming to mind, any takeaways, anything that just comes to mind for anyone? The floor is open. Just give anyone a possibility and probability if they desire to share. If not, I will complete. Agree with God. His declaration of your identity is final. It requires only your acceptance, not your perfection. Stop running around looking for things to be perfected around you. None of us are perfect. But if you're willing to sometimes even do it scared, nervous, and even a possibility that you don't know every single thing that's happening, none of us know anything. AI is growing exponentially. We don't know everything about AI, but we recognize that it is a necessary tool that as we apply it, it's going to be beneficial for us. Walk into the room. Stop hesitating at the threshold of your destiny. The room was built for you. Occupy it fully. Not in arrogance, but in a space of recognizing I'm humble enough. I've received some gifts and talents that I've been developing in and I keep working at. And this space that I'm currently in or about to enter into is a part of what is meant for me. And when you can recognize that and generate that space from inside of you, nothing can keep you back. Nothing. And finally, build what remains. Now that identity is settled, build fearlessly, strategically, and for generations to come. That's why people can still talk about the Anheuser-Busch Company, or people can still talk about the Ford Foundation, or the Rockefeller Foundation, or the Andrew Carnegie Group, or J.P. Morgan. But do they know about some of us respectively or individually? What is the identity that we're building so that others can say, wait a minute, I remember Dr. Cheryl Clarke. I remember Dr. Gregory Clarke. I remember Miss Nicole Johnson. I know Mr. Ernest Sampson. I know Mr. Edward Franklin. I heard about Mr. Everett Guthrie. I've heard about Miss Carolyn McIntyre or Mr. William Richards and so on and so on. You go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What have you built? What have you allowed yourself to mandatedly within yourself to say, yo, this is what I built? And even though I built something, what did I leave so people can keep building? So, with that, if I'm not mistaken, yes, we are complete. Yes, we are complete. Well, as we start to bring this conversation to the close for this week, and we have completed the lie-dentity. I hope you definitively have gotten something out of it. And the reason for that is that we must recognize the identity doesn't disappear just because we've completed this arc of teaching. We always have to be reminding ourselves to make sure that we don't allow our identity to rear its ugly head. Because if we do, then it's not the identity being a bad thing or a detrimental thing, is what we're accepting. If we allow for those things that are not beneficial for us to rear its head, and that's what we accept, then technically we can't really call it a bad thing. We got to just say that's just your life. That's what you've accepted, and that's what you feel you're moving through. And so work on keeping that identity at bay and keep it much more as small as possible. And finally, as always, we always give you an opportunity to share in this respective space. Let's see, where is that at? There we go, right there. As you heard us talk about AI in its many forms. We talk about making sure that Galaxy.ai is a great platform which gives you access to a bunch of different tools, which is very beneficial, which is very helpful. So you can go to this affiliate link of mine and you click that link or save that link. That gives you the opportunity to sign up for that program. It's very nominal. Sometimes it's better than some of the other stuff, but then you start to recognize the access that you get. You start to understand that this is a platform for some of you could be your entryway or your continuous into having access to a bunch of tools that can help you, because AI is not going away. So once again, that is galaxy.ai /ref equals Gregory. That is my affiliate link. I would appreciate you, clicking that link, utilizing that link, sharing that link, and for others to, become much more aware and powerful. As said again, AI is not going anywhere. So with that being said, as we conclude this session, continue blessings upon your journey. Can't wait for next week as we start another arc of the dynasty journey. We're going to continue to develop and flow and conversate and be in application and in learning. We're all learning together. And that's what the circle is about. Circle is unending. You can't tell me when the beginning of the circle is or the ending of a circle. It's a circle. And so we appreciate you and thank you for being a part of the circle today. So until next week, have a great week ahead, and we'll be reconvening same time, same space. Have an excellent week.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.